You had 3 hearings across the state of New York on this issue. You had them in the midst of August when many people, of course, are on vacation, difficult times. From here in the Capital District, most of those sites were 2.5 to 3 hours to get there. Myself and Assemblyman McLaughlin send a letter to you, as you know, requesting that you have a hearing in the Capital Region. Is not the Capital Region significant enough to have a hearing for their taxpayers, for their truckers, for their family farms, for their small businesses? Don't we have one of the most widely used tolls in the area?
We do.
Why couldn't you have a hearing here in the Capital Region?
Sir, we were required to have 3 public hearings, and we distributed the locations or the geography of those hearings so that we believed they were reasonable locations for folks to get to. There was no
so you did basically what you were required to do and no more. You think that respects the Capital Region taxpayers here?
The taxpayer, I think that...
well, let me tell you, we had a hearing Wednesday.
Right.
Many of the individuals are here, the trucking people, the small family farms, National Federation of Independent Businesses, the Business Council. I can give you a summary of what their input was. 22 of the speakers were opposed to the rate increase, and 0 were for it. Are you elected to your position?
No.
Are you appointed?
Yes.
Who appoints you?
The Board of Directors of the Thruway Authority.
Who appoints the Board of Directors of the Thruway Authority?
The Governor of the State of New York.
The Governor?
Yes.
Appoints them all?
Correct.
So you can only be removed by who? The board itself? Or?
Yes.
In other words, you don't go before the voters every 2 years after you make a decision.
That's correct.
So basically, you're a bureaucrat and not representative to the people of New York State.
On the bill,
Mr.
Mr.
Speaker, I
Tedisco.
prefer Ms.
Excuse me?
I prefer Ms. or Assemblywoman. Thank you.
Certainly.
Ms. or Assemblywoman?
Right.
Nolan. Mr. Speaker.
Hard to say Assemblywoman Nolan. It's really not. Thank you, Assemblyman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Assemblywoman Nolan, thank you.
Mr. Tedesco, on the bill.
This is a two-way street. Respect is a two-way street. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Respect is a two-way street, and we should be respecting our educators in our schools in the state of New York. And to suggest that we spent 6 hours debating a bill not too long ago in which we did nothing to protect our educational system or our educators from the attack on them would suggest that every school and every kid learns the same way, one size fits all, and no matter where you teach a school or teach a class, whether you're an arts teacher, a BOCES teacher, a special education teacher, whether you're in a district that has a lot of poverty or a high wealth district, there's one test that fits everybody. And when they take that test, they're going to use that test to evaluate their teachers potentially up to 50% for their effectiveness. Now that's totally inappropriate. This bill is silent on that. We were silent on it when we did the education bill. That's why many of us in this room voted against that. And I think there's a guillotine hanging over the educators across this state. And you may have given them another year before that guillotine comes down and chops their head off, but you're not being fair with them. There should be a limit on how much you can use a standardized test, whether it's a Common Core test or any standardized test, to evaluate an educator in the state of New York. And it probably should be 5% or less. It shouldn't even be 15%, and it certainly shouldn't be 50%. And the message for Governor Cuomo is this. A large portion of the people in this state, and I think people from both sides of the aisle here, feel that through your actions and what you've illustrated, you think the 3 parts of government in New York State and in our Constitution for you are me, myself, and I. And if you think, Governor, if you're listening, I got a challenge for you. If you think the holy grail of improving our education is Common Core testing, I got a challenge. I want you to sit in the red room. I'll bring in the 5th grade Common Core math test, the 5th grade Common Core English test, and then we'll evaluate what your scores are, and we'll release them to the public. And I believe you won't prove you're smarter than a fifth grader when we're done. This governor has to resign his office. He must resign his office. He cannot be a governor that says one thing on behalf of the constituents, urges us and tries to lead us in one direction on behalf of the legislature, then does another thing.
I am resigning from the office of governor.
Why aren't you discussing taxes in public?
I think we've discussed taxes in public till now, and we will move to taxes tomorrow.
I don't think we discussed them till now. I haven't heard a word about taxes except what I've said here. Somebody's talking about it. It's not being talked about here.
Jim, you had your press conference at 4 o'clock.
You're having a press conference now.
That's
You're
right.
talking.
I'm having a press conference.
Well, is
now,
this your
Jim.
space here or is it public?
No, it's my space.
Oh, this is your
Don't
space.
interrupt.
Is there a line item in this budget? This is the legislative and judiciary budget for the printing and the paper and the whole process of providing these bills on our desk, filling the document rooms with pieces of legislation, providing legislative digests every single week to the legislative offices, providing memos to us. Is there any line item in our legislative budget which outlines the cost of that printing, the paper, and the dissemination?
It's about $13 million when we piece it all together.
$13 million.